She specializes in identifying inefficiencies in your business that are costing you time and money and holding you back from realizing your full potential. Her 20 plus years of experience with large corporations like Fireman's Fund and American Express make her uniquely qualified to help entrepreneurs increase their efficiency, free up their time, focus on their goals, and create a more profitable business. Welcome, Susan.
Hi, Kelly. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
I'm so happy to have you today because this is something that touches on everyone trying to increase their productivity is tantamount, especially when you're wearing multiple hats, as most entrepreneurs do. But let's start at the beginning. How did you end up becoming a productivity expert? How did you get where you are now?
So I had a long, as you mentioned before, I have a long corporate career with large corporations, American Express, Fireman's Fund, to name a few. And, I had always, I love my job and I love the skills that I got to learn, the people I got to meet and all of that. But I always had a deeper calling to do something that was more heart-centered, from a desire and a love to want to do work that I loved and help people that way. So after my corporate career, I became a professional organizer for a couple of years. And because I knew that was something I could do. And it really got me engaged in the solopreneur, small business type world, which was really fascinating. And I had no idea that those types of businesses even existed. So it also helped me figure out how to run a business by myself. So then I took a 2-year MBA program that helped me, fill in the gaps that I didn't know, helped me coach clients. And that's when I found out I really loved, working individually with clients, helping them in my specialty. Productivity coaching, which is a lot of what I gained in my years in the corporate, where I had to manage large projects and do those types of organizational things, develop systems and so forth.
So you were able
that's what I really love to do.
To take that corporate experience and then translate it to small business people and entrepreneurs.
Yes.
That's such a familiar story. That's similar to my situation as well. It's not apples and oranges, but it's definitely Granny Smith and Red Delicious. They're not exactly the same, but there is some crossover, right?
Yes, absolutely. And we've talked about that before. So we, hear some of the same problems, that people are having that we can definitely help them with.
Oh, well, speaking of problems, what do you think is the most, what do you hear most from your clients and potential clients? What problem are they trying to solve?
A couple things. The first one is they're overwhelmed. So when you're in that space of, trying to do everything yourself, manage clients and manage your business, as wearing all the hats in your business is very time consuming. And when you first start out, it works for most people. But then as their business starts to grow, they realize they don't have the systems in place and structure and things like that that are scalable, that actually grow with them. So that's the point where they become overwhelmed, and then they get crunched out on time. And usually it comes out of their personal life, where all the time, they suffer with not spending enough time with their families or, by themselves, or whatever their personal life looks like to them. That usually ends up being the thing that gets crunched out.
Absolutely. So I always find when efficiency starts to come into the equation, and my client perhaps finds that they have more time on their hands, the first thing they do is they fill it with more work. they're not able to turn it off as easily as they think that they might. So it's interesting that but there is no question that I think it needs to be part of the plan is to, limit yourself on work hours, create the efficiencies so that you're able to do that, but then, create a system that runs itself to the extent that you can, that you're not duplicating work from one thing to another, so that you can enjoy as much free time and enjoy the fruits of your labor. Actually, you don't want golden handcuffs. So,
right.
What kinds of things do you work on first when you have a client that's looking to improve their automation so that they increase their efficiency so that, they can reap the fruits of their labors?
Yeah, there's a few areas that I look at. One is their time management, how they're managing their time, how their planning goes as far as, how they plan their day and what their approach is to their priorities and things like that. That's one area. Another area is where is your time going during the day? So there might be opportunities to delegate to other people. Most of us, for example, bookkeeping is a big area of opportunity for most people. That, we're not bookkeepers, we're not graphic designers, writers, all the things that you need for business. So as you start to grow, you can delegate those things to other people. And as a CEO of your company, really, you need to be spending your time on money-making activities, serving more clients and marketing and, goal setting, strategizing. Those types of things are where the most productive place to spend your time is on those types of activities. And, again, the solopreneur that wears all the hats sometimes might not realize that that's an option. So those are, some of the easy things, that I look at that can get things off your plate, like right away or fast.
So I think sometimes when people are, they're like, I can't hire somebody, I'm not at that point. Yeah. Sometimes they can, they just don't realize it. And one of I think the easiest ways to start down that path is to use a service, and I'm going to use Fiverr because it's one that people have heard of. And if you haven't heard of it, it's Fiverr.com. Or Upwork. There are a lot of different ones, but look for a freelancer that you can hire to do one small job that you can get off your plate. And do you agree with that?
I agree. Yes, I agree with that. And I think, if you're there's a few obstacles that people see, for delegating. One is, they might think it's too time consuming, like they don't have time to train people, which, if you spend a few hours up front, then all the hours on the back end are freed up for that. So that's one reason. Another reason might be they think they don't have the money, but, we have to go through the exercise of why do you think you don't have the money? So, there might be an opportunity there. And then virtual assistants are a great place to start, along with independent people like people on Fiverr. Yes, because you can hire them for a few hours a week, start slow and then kind of build from there. So that's, you start slowly. You don't have to give everything up overnight, which, it's intimidating to some people to do that. If they've never hired anybody or don't know how to manage people, that kind of thing.
Absolutely. And I think that let's kind of circle back to some things that don't involve hiring outside people, because those are the things that I think a lot of times people can put into action immediately. They can see, okay, if I pay for this software or if I use this something that's free or that I already have installed, but I didn't know that it was available to me.
Yes.
I think that those things can make a market improvement immediately. And it's basically a one-time investment, or it's a small amount per month that you pay $10 or $20 a month for a tool that will immediately take away, a bunch of the mental clutter, and make your time more efficient. So can you talk a little bit? Actually, let's talk about this. Instead of talking about the broad spectrum of tools, everybody has to deal with email. Everybody has to deal with appointments, their calendars. So can you talk a little bit just about those two things, which I think in and of themselves can be overwhelming for people?
Yeah. So email, for one, yes, it's a issue for many people. I recommend, people set up a somewhat of a system, setting aside, specific blocks of time in their calendar to, review emails, to delete, reply, those types of things, because you have a more concentrated period of time. Because most of us, have our phones and we just kind of look at it sporadically, but there's nothing ever, you delete things and things like that, but there's things that sit there in your inbox because you're not sure, about what to do, with them at that time. So, your inbox just gets fuller and fuller. So this can, put a, stem the tide kind of a situation where if you just start with that simple thing a couple of times a day, 30 minutes or so, and see, what a big difference that can make in managing your email. So that's just one easy thing that most people can do, is use their calendar.
I love the idea. Absolutely love the idea of using blocks of time for email. Yes. And I recommend to my clients to do time in the morning, a set amount of time, and time in the afternoon, and put an autoresponder on their email that says, "Thanks for sending me this email. I will respond after 4:00 today." And when it's well received by the clients because they know that you're not ignoring them. Yes. I mean, not my clients, the recipient of their autoresponder. They're like, okay, now I know, when they're going to take that time to respond to me. And then there's always the option of a phone call or a text or something like that if it's urgent. And most of the time it's not urgent.
Yes, I would say most of the time it is not urgent. And that also speaks to the, people looking at how they spend their time. Interruptions, distractions. So, emergencies are like the number one thing that most people have control over, that they don't realize, that make a huge impact. If you just maybe track your time for a few days is what I tell people to do. And you can see those opportunities, where you get distracted and, it's an unconscious habit. You get distracted, you get interrupted, your other things, happening in the background, especially a lot of us are working from home. So those types of things are huge opportunities. Where to look the first, those are, you can free up hours of your day, literally, if if you educate yourself about, the best use of your time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people don't realize until they track their time is how long it takes them to get back in the groove after they've dealt with the distraction.
Absolutely. There's, stats out there that say 20, 25 minutes for every interruption. So that's hours of your time, where you might get back to a task, but then you have to get to the same level of concentration and focus that you were at before you got interrupted. So that's something that a lot of people don't realize, but it's very true.
Finding your place is basically, and then building up the, it could take, I believe the statistics on that one. And it's a huge productivity zapper, obviously.
Yes.
So
those emergencies that you mentioned,
are
also, think about, is this really an emergency? Just create that space to ask that question. And that can
is
start
something
to
blowing
give you
up or
some room.
bleeding? And if not, it's
Yeah.
probably not an emergency.
Right. It's an emergency, that you define for yourself, that, you can rethink those opportunities. And that's how I look at them, as opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I know you're a big proponent of time blocking.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that and how that works with your calendar?
Yes, time blocking. So we did use the example of setting aside time for emails. So I'm a big advocate of planning your day. And so that includes things. So time blocking could be things that you do on a daily basis that you might not set aside specific time for. So things like sales calls. That's a real common one that people kind of don't think too much about setting aside time for. So that's one area. The other area is when you do track your time, you can see like what you need to set aside time for. So, but they tend to be, things that you do every day, for, of course, billable hours. If you're a service business, you want to set aside work hours. And maybe time for appointments. You talked about the calendar and some tools for the calendar. So things like Calendly is a free thing that a lot of people use to help people make appointments. So you would block off time for appointments in your schedule, and then send people a link for your calendar to make their own appointments. So that can save people time. So it's those everyday things that can be something that, like I said, the things that you do every day is the things that you want to focus on, that you make sure that you have time for.
I think that I'm glad you brought up sales calls, because that is, no matter what your business, unless you're somewhere that you open the door and your clients walk through the door, like a restaurant or something like that. Unless you have a physical storefront, you will need to make sales calls or follow-up calls or those sorts of things. So I think it's important to put those on your calendar. I know for me, I made a new goal of making a minimum of 5 sales calls a day outbound. So putting it on my calendar is the only way that's going to happen, because I have plenty of things to do without ever making one sales call. And of course, true. I won't actually stay in business. I won't be in business unless I continue to make sales. So that's true. An important one. I have started actually putting on my calendar. I'm not going to tell you about my compliance yet, but I've actually started putting a daily walk and my lunch on a calendar, on my calendar, because those are 2 things that I don't make time for. I kind of try to squeeze something in, and if it doesn't fit, then there I am trying to, shovel food in my mouth in the 5 minutes between the 2 appointments that I set up back to back. So yeah, even for those of us that use time blocking, sometimes you really have to examine what you're doing and make time for things that are important. And of course, self-care is important. Yes. The walk, the eating, the moving around every hour or so. You probably don't have to put moving around every hour or so on your calendar, but sometimes it does help if you set an alarm or a timer that'll tell you, hey, get up and get a glass of water or something.
Yeah, I think, and it's, it is more productive to take little breaks like that. It helps you, stay focused, and more, just engaged, if you can, let your mind breathe for a few minutes, like every so often. Yeah, but you have a good point there about the, scheduling breaks and lunch, exercise. So things that have to do with your goals, in your personal life too, and in your business as well. So you want to, set aside time to work on the goals, and you have to define what those are. Like you said, you've got your 5 sales calls a day. So that, that's a goal that you would put on your calendar. So things like that having to do with your business.
And
on your calendar. I also like to tell people to put the top 3 things of the day, actually schedule them at a specific time, because that, helps you prioritize every day what the most important things are, and so at least you have, some focus there about what you want to get done that day.
I agreed. I think that's so important. But yeah, if you want to get it done, put it on your calendar. Tasks. Sometimes you can bunch. I think, again, you feel free to jump in. But sometimes if you have multiple tasks that need to get done, you can just put a block of time for those tasks, and then zip through as many of them as you can get done in that hour block of time. You don't have to create a specific appointment for each task as much as you need to have time to get those tasks done.
Yes, I agree with both of those scenarios. So it's it's like a personal choice. I myself put blocks of time, and just get through those things, in that period of time. Other people, have maybe a project-based thing that they're working on that they want a specific time frame within their day to work on. So besides putting it on your calendar, another thing that people always do is underestimate how long things are going to take. So I always say add 50% more time at least to what you think it's going to take, because it always takes longer than you think.
Yeah, there's always that thing that you thought, okay, I'm ready to do this. I'm ready to do my writing project. You sit down, you start to write, and you're like, oh, I need to research this. I'm going to say this, but I don't have the research. I don't have the right information. You have to put in the research time, and that changes your timeline. So absolutely, those things happen. And one other thing, we talked about daily time blocking, but I also do weekly time blocking. We talked about the tasks and things. I usually on Fridays are my cleanup day. And I use time blocks on Fridays to take care of all the piddly things that are just gnats. That is, they're buzzing around and they're bugging me, but they're tiny and they don't deserve attention during the week, right? You're focused on other things. So you take care of all of those little pesky, bothersome things in a 2-hour block. Sometimes it takes longer. Sometimes you have to give more time, but you have that block of time once a week where you can clear those decks, and then those gnats go away. You don't have to worry about them, during the week. And then even during the week, you're not concerned because you'll take care of that on Friday. So it
that's a really good point.
Your mind. Again, this is how I see it. It helps a lot with.
Yeah, personally, So I love the idea of the weekly time blocking. I block out most of all of Monday morning, just to get myself organized and situated and kind of ease into the week without having to go 1,000 miles an hour first thing on Monday. I know other people, they set aside Fridays for business development type things. I have a client that, we do regular coaching, and she's got action items from those coaching calls. So she set aside, Friday mornings to work on the stuff that we talk about. So it's things like that that are very, very beneficial, to keep you focused and really aware of what your goals are and, how your time is spent and those types of things that they already discussed earlier.
Can we talk about one last thing, which is, it's definitely been a challenge for some of my clients, and that is when you talk about personal development and also networking. Both of those things take up a lot of, or can take up a lot of time. There are a lot of opportunities, especially in the days of Zoom, to join calls that would actually potentially help you professionally. But now you find that you're spending 50% of your time on the screen, and other things are dropping through the cracks. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, that is a very real problem that a lot of us have, especially like in the Zoom era. So I would say to be very strategic about those things that you select. So I've limited myself to 3, weekly type networking groups. So I've got BNI, which I know a lot of us are familiar with. So I have that commitment. Then I have, another weekly commitment where I'm one of the facilitators of a meeting. And then I have one more during the week. So those, if you're strategic about, like, if you know where your goals are, if you know like the best people to network with and the best groups to be part of, give it some thought. That really helps as far as making those decisions. And then there's those once a month type meetings that, that people have that, or people are part of, which I know probably have 2 groups that I can think of off the top of my head that only meet once a month. So that time is less, that's like an hour, every month. But you also want to be strategic about, connecting with those people, inside those networking groups and, building those relationships. So that's really what networking is about.
Absolutely. But limiting your time and understanding that you're doing it strategically.
Yes.
That, that you cannot go to every person's thing. Even if you would love to, you cannot do it and still move your business forward. So yeah, it's important to do that. It's important to participate, but it's also important to give yourself a time limit. So I would say, looking at all of your efforts, if you work 40 hours a week on your business, think somewhere between 7 hours. So if you do something and it's a half a day class, it's 4 hours. Mm-hmm. But somewhere around that 7 hour to 8 hour mark is the maximum that you would want to spend on those types of activities in a week. And that's if you don't have any other impending doom projects that are hanging over your head. And it's part of network. I mean, these are all valid, important things to do. So I'm not suggesting that, but you do, I think, need to limit your time.
You do.
So that you have time for the other parts of your business that need your time and attention.
Yes. Yeah. So that goes back to, again, I think tracking your time is hugely beneficial in so many areas. And that is one of them, to know, like, how much time am I spending doing, networking, some people 15 hours a week or more. Yeah. And then you can, if you have that information, then you can make a more informed decision and be more strategic, about where's the most beneficial return on investment, of time, so to speak.
Yeah, I absolutely love that advice. That's wonderful. And we haven't even talked about all the other things, the software and the ways to take work away and all of those things. We barely scratched the surface. So I want to know, if somebody wants more information from you, how do they get a hold of you? And do you have anything coming up that someone can participate in, our viewers can participate in?
Yes. So the best way to get a hold of me is my email, susan@insideoutbiz.com. I do have an event tomorrow, a workshop that's Master Your Calendar. So it covers a lot of the things that we talked about today, how to prioritize, what things to put on your calendar, time blocking, all those types of things. Keeping your priorities and goals in mind, and being more conscious about your time, using the calendar as a tool. So that is tomorrow from 3 to 5. There's a discount available that I can put in the chat, or give that information to your viewers. So anyone that hears this today can take advantage of that.
Perfect. That's wonderful. That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Susan, for being with us. I really love the advice that you are giving everyone. And I know that you have so much more to share. So please, I would recommend to everybody that you go ahead and contact Susan and find out how you can get into one of her webinars or participate with her in some way to really up-level your business. Thank you again, and we will talk to you soon.
Great. Thanks.